everybody, this is Chaos with KLC Sports Productions, bringing you another viewer cast. Today we're going to be looking at a ZvT here on Merry-Go-Round, and this is going to be a viewer cast of a player who actually has been out of StarCraft for a couple of years, just trying to get himself back into it. So we're going to be giving him some tips on how to get a little bit better. Now, first off, I wanted to make one quick comment. Going into this game, he did come in as a random player, so it looks like he's also trying to potentially figure out what race makes sense for him and things like that. So we've already got one small little mistake, built one too many drones, unfortunately, so he went ahead and canceled, no big deal. But yeah. So he said that he has been out for 2 years and has mainly been doing some unranked games. So we're going to talk a little bit about just kind of mechanics and things like that, as well as some things that happened during the game that we want to make comment of. So yeah. So first off, we'll talk about the starting here. Now, pretty much always. The first thing that you do when you get into a game, you build your drone. I'm going to talk a little bit more specific to Zerg, since obviously the replay is a Zerg. We're going to talk about Zerg mechanics. But typically what you'll do is you'll get into game, you'll immediately build your drone, and then this first overlord will actually go adjacent or opposite of your natural. So since the natural base is down here, the first inclination is for this overlord to go down to this bottom right, or I guess the southern location. You know, just to get a scout out, figure out where your opponent is, and hopefully get some insight into what's at his front wall. But instead, you're going to actually go ahead and do a drone scout, which is also fine, especially as a newer player getting back into it. Always good to double check and make sure that your opponent's not cheesing, things like that, because that can be quite painful. But anyway, so you go for a 14 pool 14's extractor, which is all good. Did hold off a little bit on the drones getting into the extractor, but you know, overall not too big of a deal. And then your drone went in, didn't really get a whole lot of scouting off. You did see this gas. I'm not sure if you let's see, yeah, vision wise, or no, let's see, what am I doing? There we go. Yeah, so you didn't get in and scout any gases, which is a little bit of an issue. So you definitely want to be a little bit cautious there. But yeah, at this point you're kind of a little bit in the dark, just because the only thing that you've really seen is his racks here and no gases. So basically you're just like, okay, you got to start to think, okay, well, what am I going for? What's my objective? And that's actually why scouting is very, very crucial. Getting these overlords into positions where you can send them in and kind of get an idea of what your opponent's going is definitely a must as a Zerg player. Zerg tends to play a little bit more reactionary, so it's always good to have an inkling on what your opponent's doing and kind of get an idea of, okay, how can we capitalize on what he's going, and how can we counter it. So you're going to go ahead, I believe you start to build links here soon. I'm gonna go ahead and comment a little bit actually on the gas. So you get your 100 gas, and then you continue on mining gas. Usually, if you're going to go for a baneling type play, you're going to take one of these guys out of gas, get your baneling nest down as quickly as possible, and then you're basically going to go for like a baneling bus type move. Now, by getting up this second expansion a little bit later, you're limiting the amount of damage that you can actually do with these lings, and you're also, you know, it's just a very odd timing. So maybe a little bit more refined build. Like I said, you know, you are getting back into it, so I don't fully expect for builds to be, you know, 100% snappy, but you just really need to focus on, okay, what is my objective? What are my, you know, metrics that I'm trying to hit? You can see that you're at 13 drones on your mineral line. You got one chilling out here. Definitely need to be focusing on getting your economy up, because at this point you don't know what your opponent's doing, and by building units you're minimizing the amount of drones that you have. So you really need to focus on figuring out, okay, am I droning up now, or am I getting units? And at this point you're getting units, which is fine, since it does appear that you are going to be going for a slightly more rush style. So double gas. Usually you don't see double gas come down until after the lair has started, or even some, your baneling nests as well as upgrades. So a little bit weird there. Not sure what you're trying to accomplish with that, because obviously more minerals at this point is going to be more units as far as lings and drones are concerned. So you go ahead, send your lings over. You see the bunker, as well as actually you also see the factory going, which is a nice little scout. So he hasn't expanded. He is pretty much sitting on one base, and he's got a factory. That's all you know. You don't really know that he's going for ghost tech and is going to have nukes coming your way fairly soon. So we need to start to think, okay, how are we going to deal with this? Now, this many lings for the original wall that was here in number of units, that would have been perfect. You would have been able to easily baneling bust in here. Granted, your baneling nest is a little bit late. But you would have been easily able to get in here, take out the bunker, take out the units, and be able to, be in a really, really good position. So behind this, you've done a little bit of journey. You're still a little bit behind, I think, because you've got all this larva that's unspent. You just now are getting drones. Those need to be a little bit more focused and refined. So Hellion comes out, you get it. Now, one thing I also want to make comment, when I watched the replay before, I saw a lot of scrolling back and forth. I highly recommend setting up hotkeys. Basically, the way I do mine is I go ahead, I grab all of my hatcheries, I put them on my 4 hotkey. That's just most comfortable for me. And then also, one thing that you should consider about doing is putting up camera location keys. I generally set them up on my F1 through 4. Basically, I've went into the here, actually, let's quickly do that. If you go into the options down under hotkeys and go to global, go to camera, and scroll down, you'll see create locations. I've got these reset up as shift keys, so I've got shift F3 as my location 1, F2, F1 as 2 and 3. That's basically how I usually set up, because it's real easy to switch between. And then basically by doing that, what you can do is you can shift, like I'll go ahead and set these up. You can basically toggle between your bases. So if you're like going back to inject, you hit the F3 for me, hit V, inject, and then hit your F2 to go to your natural, and so on and so forth. So really easy way to get between bases, and a really nice little tip. So yeah, so you're building your banelings at this point, and you don't have a whole lot of units here for what you've seen. You've seen that he's gotten Hellions, so you know that he's potentially going to be able to deal enough damage. Your banelings come in and just barely get the supply depot down. Now, you go ahead and build a ton, 13 banelings on the way. This is a little excessive, and you don't really have any follow-up units. What I mean by that is, once all of these banelings hit, you don't have any units that can go in, harass a mineral line, or anything to that degree. So you're basically sacrificing everything that you've got to try and destroy his entire army. Plus, a lot of the banelings are going to get taken out initially with all of the damage from the bunker. And now you've only got a handful of links left, and going in here, you're really not going to be able to get a whole lot done with this many Hellions. So you're kind of forced at this point to build units defensively, because you know he's got units. And actually, you go ahead and throw down your Roach Warren, and there's your 14 links. So yeah. So now you're kind of in a pickle. You've wasted all of your units trying to get into his base, and I would assume try and just win. But it just didn't pan out. So you're kind of left with, okay, now what do I do? Now, you're 11 minutes into the game and you haven't started your lair, and this is kind of a little bit of an issue, because lair is going to be very key dealing with banshees, cloaked banshees, or potentially random ghosts that decide to be cloaked. So unfortunately for you, he's going to have a nice cloaked ghost, and it's actually going to get in here and do some significant damage to your economy. So at this point, your playstyle is, it's not bad. It's just for, I'd say you're probably, playing maybe mid to high bronze players, just judging by basic mechanics and things like that. So Ghost is going to go ahead, plant down the... oh, actually, let me back it up just a little bit because I want to show you something. So whenever you're dealing with ghosts and are up against nukes and things like that, one thing that you always want to be aware of is nukes actually show themselves. You just have to be very keen on looking for them. So we're going to pause. So you see the small little dot at your natural. Whenever I hear a nuclear explosion thing, I'm just like, okay, where's the dot? And usually it's on a hatchery just because it takes out all the mineral lines and everything. So it's like, okay, got to figure out which hatchery it's at and then abandon, because all of these drones are going to just get melted. I mean, we'll see here very shortly. And obviously by not getting your lair up in time, you're not going to be able to get out an overseer to detect this. So nuke is going to come down, wha-bam, and your entire natural is more or less cleaned up. And then you are left to attempt to do some damage, and with Widow Mines and Hellbats, you're not really going to be able to accomplish a whole lot. So you've wasted a lot of units, and you really aren't going to be ready for a whole lot. Now, granted, you do have a fairly big bank, but with minimal production as far as like all of the larvae at your natural getting taken down, and you using them to get roaches out, you can't get your economy back. You're forced to get units. And this puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage. Now, honestly, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop right here, because I think I've given you enough to think about that will hopefully get you in the right direction. Because I think from here on out, it's basically you just rebuilding your army and getting, you know, into a position. You end up taking a third and actually getting a little bit of damage done. You take out a whole bunch of Hellions kind of in the mid-game. Let's see. Let's go ahead and pull out just, yeah, there. Or no, this is like the final engagement, I think. Yeah, this is like the final engagement. So, but yeah, basically it boils down to you get to a point where you're just overwhelmed. Your opponent's got Thors and Hellbats and Hellions, oh my. And you really can't do anything about it just because you haven't been focusing on a particular build. You've kind of been just going everywhere. So I think the biggest takeaways that you want to get from this video, feel free if you've got any other more specific questions to this race, I'd be more than happy to answer those down in the comments. But I think the biggest takeaways for this video is probably, one, set up your hotkeys and things like that. Hotkeys are so vital in developing your StarCraft skill, and they're just very helpful to move around, double tapping different hotkeys to go from your main army back to your bases, and the location keys are very helpful for injects and things like that, as you do have like full energy here, pretty high energy there, halfway decent down here. But I think those are kind of the big things that I would say that you need to work on. As far as the gameplay style and getting faster at moving left and right and whatnot and building units, I think that will come in time. But I think location hotkeys and hotkeys in general are probably your biggest detriment to your play style, just because it's very difficult to move around. And you'll find that in StarCraft is mainly about figuring out how to get what you need on screen faster. The build orders and those type of things just come with time, practice, and you know, getting creative depending on what your opponent's doing. And then also scouting. Scouting is also another very key component that you really need to look at. That first overlord always needs to go to the adjacent base, as I mentioned before, and generally my second overlord goes to my natural, just so if you're playing against a Protoss player, you can deal with any cannon rushes and things like that. But yeah, scouting in general, just to get an idea of what your opponent's doing. Because, I mean, let's be honest, the only thing that you really got to see in his base was things that were in vision of this small little area. Everything else was secondary. So it's very difficult for you to react and play, you know, figure out what you need to get without scouting. So those are my recommendations. I hope they are helpful. Like I said, feel free if you've got any more specific questions, feel free to leave those in the comments. I'd be more than happy to take those there. Also, you've got the replays email if you would like to submit another replay, either as a different race, maybe more ask more specific questions. This was supposed to be more of a general thing, and I think hotkeys, camera locations, and scouting are kind of the main takeaways or the main things that people need to practice, especially when you're in the lower leagues, because those are vital skills. So, like I said, I hope you enjoyed. Feel free. If you got any questions, leave those down in the comment section below. If you are not Mr. Street Viper and did enjoy the video, feel free to also go ahead and hit that like button and share with your friends on Facebook and Twitter who might be trying to learn Zerg. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something. I'd be more than happy to do a cast of one of your replays. There's an email in the description. If you feel free to check that out. Send your replays to that and just give me a little verbiage on what you'd like me to talk about. The more specific you can be, the better I can, kind of hone in on the issue and really give you some good key takeaways to help improve your game. So feel free to do that. Also, if you're new and haven't already, feel free to subscribe and check out some of my other videos. I've got lots of content on Zerg and Protoss, other viewer casts, as well as a Bronze to Masters League series. So feel free to check out all of those. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next game.